Assalamualaikum everyone, it's Rifa here, a very new member from Team Bertho, which is a youth-led platform with the objective of gathering and publicizing life lessons and stories from a diverse demographic of people from all around the world. Being a new recruit of this team and a pretty unfamiliar face to you all, if I really had to place a small intro about myself, then I'd go for addressing myself as an ambivert who gets a little passionate about dancing, somebody who loves listening to The Weekend, and someone who loves listening to the sound of rain sitting with a piping hot coffee in her balcony. So, once again, hello everyone, and apparently, I'm gonna be your host for today, season 2, episode 6 of Ichi-go Ichi-e. Uh, for the newcomers over here, you must be wondering what this Ichi-go Ichi is basically. Now, this is a Japanese four-character idiom that describes a cultural concept of treasuring the unrepeatable nature of a moment. In other words, you could say it to be a live interactive sessions where authors, entrepreneurs, activities, and instructions from all around the world join and teach the audience by discussing about specific topic, by sharing valuable insights along with creating a little bit of awareness. In other words, it can be translated into something that happens once in a lifetime. With a great pleasure for me to introduce our speaker today, someone who is proactive, organized, and not just that, but enthusiastic and determined, someone who is seeking for new challenges. Today, our guest speaker will be here among us speaking about peacemaking by promoting the non-conflict way. Now, you must be wondering why this topic should even be something that we are interested in, right? The answer is very simple because it targets and encourages individuals to put their difficulties in order to feel comfortable and settle future conflicts. Our guest speaker just graduated from McGill University with a bachelor's degree in commerce and a specialization in human resources and labor relations. She was also named a Valedictorian in 2022 as a consequence of her outstanding academic achievements and great leadership abilities. She was the Human Resource Director of the Management Undergrad Society and a member of the Ethics Board. And when it comes to her future plans, she plans to study law, where she thinks that it has the power to act as a great weapon for peacemaking. So, without any further delay, please join me welcoming home Theodora Sauve.
Hi there. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction.
Okay, so tell me about the Nonflict thing that I just mentioned out here.
For sure. So if we could have possibly the slides, that would be great. Okay, amazing. So thank you very much. So as mentioned, so today we'll be having a talk on the Nonflict way, as well as how that relates to the organization that I'm co-chairing right now, which is Million Peacemakers Youth. So basically we have Million Peacemakers, which is already an existing nonprofit that is aiming to promote the Nonflict way into various institutions. And that was really kind of, more the general level, and now they want to have a youth initiative to go from the Million Peacemakers to the Billion Peacemakers. But let's go forward with what I want to discuss today, which is peaceful conflict resolution. So if we can move on to the next slide, please. So when we think of what is conflict, so apologies here, there seems to be a bit of formatting issues with the sharing, but no worries at all. But so when we think about what is conflict, so it's two or more different perspectives in contact with each other, put simply, right? You could have conflict doesn't necessarily need to be, you conflicting with someone. You could have an internal conflict with yourself. You have a conflict with yourself maybe every morning when your alarm clock rings. You're conflicting just with your alarm clock of staying in your bed or waking up, right? And it's necessary. It's part of life in the sense that sometimes it can even motivate you to have this conflict. It wakes you up in the morning, makes you do things, or maybe it's, oh, I think I need to get in shape, and it's motivating you to do that workout or to eat better or to drink an extra gallon of water, right? So there's conflict is just everywhere. And sometimes it's hard, but if there's no conflict, sometimes there's no way to advance. You could just be having a conflict while you're brainstorming with your peers. But the thing is that conflict has a negative view in the sense that sometimes conflict happens in wars. It happens with a lot of damage that is violent, and this is what Nonflict is trying to address. We want to find a way that we will have constructive conflict. So if we can go to the next slide. So we're basically addressing destructive conflict. So how can we get something productive and constructive from conflict? So if you think of conflicts that you had in your life, there's probably times where you came into the conflict and you were like, oh, I don't want to do this. And you didn't feel well, you feel tense. And maybe I'm just talking from my personal experience, but I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. And then at the end of the conflict, you were able to communicate it well, and that might not happen all the time. But if you were able to communicate how you really felt, and so did the other person, then you actually feel like something productive out of there happened. And I think you'll feel relieved. So the Nonflict way is trying to give you an easy way of doing this, a structured way that you can do this with conflicts in your life and just feel as if it's something productive and constructive that you're coming out of from the conflict. And the way it does this is that it permits you to hold your judgment and to listen to others and to be listened in counterpart as well, but in easy but complex steps. So this is what I'll be addressing. But just before we go to the next slide, so you can see to your right that we have a book that our wonderful Amir Kif and as well as Stephen Hetch, who is the CEO actually and co-founder of our organization of Million Peacemakers, has wrote this wonderful book. We also have ebooks. So if ever you guys are interested, let me know and we can definitely share the copy and etc. It's also on Spotify. So just doing a little bit of promotion here. But if we move on to the next slide, please. So you may be wondering, all of this talking to you about conflict, conflict resolution, the Nonflict. And I mentioned briefly at the beginning that I was the co-chair with actually a wonderful person called Gianluca in Argentina, who is helping me in this project. But you may be wondering, okay, but why are you doing this? And why have you been appointed? And I think I'm just going to narrow this down to why I decided to apply and to join. And I think this is actually something that Montreal found hilarious, that I hated conflict. I literally hate conflict. I have avoided conflict, I think, all my life. Has it been with friends, with my skating partner? Because people who know me well, I have done figure skating for a big part of my life. 6 to 18, I did dance with a partner, friends, professors, etc. I tend to flee like your little guy that we have here on the right? And I want to change. I realized that I needed to do something about this. And when I heard about this way, this Nonflict way, actually in a class of mine last semester, 2 semesters ago, so in the fall in 2021, my professor is on the board of Million Peacemakers, and he brought this opportunity and also showed us the Nonflict way. And I was like, you know what? This is the time for me to get how conflict works and to find something productive about it. So if we move on to the next slide. So as I said, I used to hate it, and it always made me feel like I had something in my stomach, and I preferred just to flee and leave. And, I didn't want to, I think I'm a big people pleaser, and I think that comes into it. You don't want to hurt someone's feelings. But I started to understand that I might be hurting my feelings even more, and most probably the feelings of the other person as well. So I wanted to understand it better and figure out how to handle it better. And I think I'm getting there. So that's what's good. And it's because of this way. So if we move on. So if we want to go into how did my perspective of conflict change, right? So definitely the Nonflict way helped. And I think it comes down to these 3 points. It's an awareness of what I am feeling and trying to be aware of what maybe the other person is feeling, or if it's in a group the other people, or if it's a conflict with myself, then how are these two components, these two issues battling, and how can I be aware of it instead of pushing it back and being, okay, it doesn't exist? How can I take, in some sense, not control, but how can I own it? How can I be aware, and what can I do once I'm aware, right? So once you're aware, you can have a discussion, and you need to perspective take. So being aware and perspective taking kind of plays into one and the other, in the sense that if you want to be aware of the other person, then you need to perspective take. You need to put yourself in the shoes of the other. And this is a saying that, you know, you've heard probably since you're a little child, when your mom or your dad or whoever told you, well, did you think of how that might make the other person feel? And, you know, you heard it, but it's absolutely true. Because you may have, and I have a tendency to maybe find things annoying and not realize the underlying conflicts or the underlying reasons of this. But if you're able to perspective take, and this is only possible, by the way, this perspective taking, because of active listening, right? Because, and this is the point that you have in bold, because I think it's the most important thing. It's only possible to perspective take if you actively listen, because unless you're able to read minds, you might not necessarily know what the other people are coming through, right? So you need to take a step back and you need to listen actively. And what I mean by this is we have a tendency to listen to reply, right? So you want to have a conversation, and that's, I think, human nature. You want to connect and you want to keep that conversation going, and you want to share and you want to bolster yourself, and etc. But if you really want to connect and if you really want to understand what's going on, you need to step back and you need to listen actively. So you need to not think of replying. You need to think of understanding what's going on. And a great way to do this is by having a conversation with someone and you concentrate all your attention to that person. So no telephones, no notifications, nothing. Attention to that person. And you take the time to observe what they're saying, and you're not concentrating on replying. I keep saying this, but that's really a key part. And once you're done hearing the person and what they seem done, don't rush them. You try to rephrase what they just told you. And you ask them, did I understand you well? If they say, yes, you did, you ask, is there anything else? They say, no, you didn't. You ask them to rephrase, and then you go on with it, you repeat, right? So an example could be, I am talking with someone, and I'm there, and they're talking to me maybe about something important, something about school, for example. So, hey, Thea, like I've been having difficulty in this class, and it's gotten me very stressed, and I feel like no one can understand it. Everyone's doing well, etc., etc. And instead of maybe saying, oh, like, don't worry, I found the class tough as well, right? That's maybe what we would have a tendency to do. And that's not bad, but if you really want to actively listen, you could say, so if I understand you well, you are feeling, and feeling is maybe not the best way because you don't want to put feelings into their mouth, but you say, everyone around you, you're thinking that they're succeeding and you're not, you're feeling overwhelmed, you're stressed, and you maybe don't know what to do from there. And you ask, is there something else? And then they'll answer yes or no. So you really want to get that perspective and help them, just gather the information. Okay. Oh, there you are. So, and that's what's really important, is that you get that information, because often when there's problems, if someone is listened, then they'll feel better, right? You don't necessarily have to give everyone a solution. So if we pass on to the next slide. So this brings me, now that I gave you the skills, kind of Nonflict, that the skills that help me and that are pretty much, coming from these 3-step processes, let me explain them to you in a summarized type of way. And if you're interested, I attached it, by the way, in the appendix, the detailed slides, if ever you guys want to reflect back on them. So what is Nonflict? So it's a 3-step process to transform conflict into Nonflict. And it's really simple, but complex. And we'll touch upon that. So the step 1 is to understand self and your partner. So understanding, how am I feeling? and understanding maybe how the other person is feeling. So you're going to ask a series of questions, and you're going to try to really embody that. And that's, the beginning of any process, is understanding the situation, right? If you go into a problem without even knowing what's going on, your solution probably won't be sustainable. So you're reflecting on the situations and the emotions underlying the conflict at hand. Afterwards, you're going to understand your shared reality. So, you may be feeling this way and you may be feeling this way, but what is bringing this reality, and why are you guys in conflict? What is happening together, right? And you're going to communicate basically the personal and the interpersonal views. And you're going to see, how is this person feeling? How am I feeling? How are we feeling together? And all of that. Bringing it together as our hands on each other, right? And then you're going to co-create. So this is my favorite step, in the sense that now that you talked about this, you're trying to find a way to make this happen, to have a sustainable solution. So you're collaborating together to a shared constructive possibilities, right? So in this step, you're going to concentrate on what is your obstacles that would lead you to your best case scenario. So if you think that your best case scenario, for example, in a couple, is that you will stay together and get married, and etc., very kitchen, etc., but what's the obstacles that are between that? And you're trying to work on those obstacles and find ways and find a plan, and constructively find a plan to help you get there. So that's in a gist of it, that's the Nonflict way. So if we pass on to the next slide. So in other words, it's simple, right? There's 3 steps, and I really did kind of a summary of it. And I think that's what's great, is that you can really summarize it. The steps are a bit longer if we, look at the detail, but it is pretty simple, and it fits underneath a business card, right? Simple way. But it's also complex, because you need to get into it, in the sense that your mental effort is going to be there. So you need to be in a great place. You need to be ready to do it. And often, in conflicts, it may be better to step back and then do this way, right? It's maybe not the time to do it when you're super aggravated, but it's a time to do it when you're ready in a good mental space. So simple and complex. So it's not but complex, but it's and complex, because it's both at the same time. So if we can pass to the next slide. So into, my personal experience with this, I think, it's made me more comfortable with conflict, realization that conflict is part of life. And, we touched upon that at the beginning, but, I used to think that I did not need to deal with conflict, whatever. But, we do have to, and it's part of life, and it can be constructive. But, in real terms, it made me less stressed and happier, because I learned to understand what I'm feeling and try to address it, instead of, listening to my depressing music in my bed, So I tried to take it into hands and to be happier, and to not stop ruminating about it and stressing out about it. And it's a better relationship, with the people around me, because people used to not maybe understand what was up with me and why I was cold. But now, if I'm able to communicate it, then afterwards we can pass on to other stuff and nicer stuff, right? And not lose friends and not lose people that you used to love, right? So this is how it changed my life. So if we pass on to the next slide, just going to take a little sip of water. So now that we went over, the Nonflict way, its details, how I got involved, and how it changed my life. So I just want to tell the youth audience that, we are currently kind of in startup mode, and it's a great organization, Million Peacemakers Youth, as well as Million Peacemakers, to whom we really have a lot of support from. And I would like to talk about it, to invite you to join if you're interested. So let's just discuss, about the organization. So Million Peacemakers Youth has as its objective the following. We are a global youth initiative that strives for a youth-driven, peaceful future. We empower youth worldwide to co-create a culture of peace, where differences are understood as opportunities to co-create, and where no one is left behind. To achieve this, we will provide youth organizations and educational institutions with key resources to promote the constructive resolution of conflicts. So basically what we're trying to do is that we want to gather the most that we can to be able to target schools, to target other youth organizations, to target other youth NGOs or other NGOs that do work with youth, to be able to give them the tools so they can actually spread this way, and that we're able to find a more peaceful world. And what is really important is that we're also a great team, and we're all trying to strive for a more peaceful world. So if ever you're interested, you can go to the next slide, and I will share some information on who to reach out. So you can reach out to me, myself, or Gian, who is my co-chair, with the following email addresses. You can check out our website. You can follow Gian and I on social media. And if we can, attach this to when we share the live, that would be amazing. And within basically the organization, if you want to know how it's going to work a bit, so we have multiple different departments. We have project management, we have partnership, we have fundraising, we have tech, we have data and insight, we have marketing, we have facilitators, which kind of serve a role as, they will learn how to be trained as facilitators and give some conferences. And everyone has a role, and we're really working to promote this within the youth as much as possible. And so if you're interested, please let us know. And I think that's about it on my end. And I really, really appreciate the time that you guys took with me, and I'm open to questions.
Okay, Thea, it was really nice. I mean, watching through those slides about the thing that you point out, it was absolutely vivid. And even I agreed to that point that maybe conflicts arise because we don't really have that healthy interaction with people. What I mean by that is we don't really listen from both the ends. The communication is not mutual, and maybe because of that, I think that turns out to be the sole reason. And and the solution that you have provided were actually it. I mean, it creates awareness through non-flict ways that you are going for. And yeah, I mean, you were about to say something maybe of
No, I said that exactly. I agree fully. I think we think of our way, right? When we're mad, or when we're angry, or when we're sad, we think, we're overwhelmed with our own thoughts. And I think that's why it's also important to let that happen, right? But don't react right away with the person. React maybe on your own, right? And then take the time to constructively work that out. And I think that's, a big takeaway of it, because it's not that it's not good to live your emotions, right? But if you can contain them for violence not to come, and even if it's not violence, if it's just, not making people sad and angry and finding peace.
Yeah, and I really think that we should be taking non-flict pretty seriously, because when we're encountering conflicts, we lose a lot of our friends, our dear ones, that can be really hurtful at times.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a really I don't know how to phrase it up. It's an amazing step that you've taken.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And as many people want to get involved or happy, and at the beginning of this organization, definitely, we're building as fast as we can, and we're really, really happy to. Well, I'm really happy to be part of this, definitely.
Well, that's really nice hearing. Now, I have a question for you, and that is, what lesson in life took you the longest to learn?
Do I have to have it learned already, or can I be learning it?
Maybe it could still be the way you're learning it.
Okay. I think it's like, we say this expression where it's like, take a chill pill, like calm down. And I think that's one of the things I'm really working on, to know that things are not all pressing and the world won't end, if you don't reply right away. And that sometimes it's better to take a deep breath and to take your time. And I think that's also, related to the Nonflict way, in the sense that even when you have situations, instead of freaking out, chill,
Yeah. Now that we're almost at the end of this session, I'd want you to know if there is any kind of suggestion that you'd like to place for Team Bertho before we kind of wrap it up for today.
In what sense, the suggestions?
As in, since you have connected here through Team Bertho, what are the pros and cons that you have faced so far?
Oh, okay. Well, I don't have anything really negative to say, but I just want to say that honestly, the platform looks amazing and you are an excellent host and everything was very, very well organized. I really appreciate all the work that you guys are doing and putting, different words out there. And I think, human nature likes to communicate by speech and by, from the times being from a long time ago, we have done this and now we're able to adapt and do it online and get some global perspectives. And I just admire the work that you guys do.
Mm-hmm. Looks like we have come almost at the very end, and we actually have to wrap it up here. To be very honest, being for the first time here and taking live sessions, thank you. It was absolutely amazing to have such a wonderful soul right in front of me to get myself engaged into a topic that is actually wholesome, something that people don't really find themselves interested in, maybe because they think that at some point of their life they may be ignoring or maybe avoiding conflicts. But the way you've introduced it out, it was really great.
Thank you so much.
So I genuinely appreciate all those who were actually listening till the end of this session, and I hope you will be seeing more of me in the upcoming sessions of Team Bertho. Till then, stay safe and sane, healthy, and bye for today.